Here's a trick if you got a CV axle that just won't pop loose from the transmission. If you've pried and levered and smacked with a hammer, and it's still not coming, it's possible to use the inner joint as a slide hammer to get the whole assembly out. Keep in mind that this will destroy the grease boot on the inner side and possibly damage the joint itself. I'm only doing so because I have a whole new axle I'm putting in. I'm going to take a razor knife and cut around the larger part of the boot towards the inside. It's going to be a lot of nasty grease in there, so gloves are a good idea, and have some rags on standby. Barely started, and there's already a mess. For the sake of not making even more of a mess, I'm going to cut the rest of the boot off and clean up all of this grease here and on the inside of the socket there. There's the inner joint socket cleaned out, and here's the end of the axle itself. They don't need to be clean enough to eat out of, but you need it clean enough so that the grease isn't splashing everywhere during the next step. Going to slide the inner joint back together. Next, going to use some vice grip locking pliers on the outside of the inner joint housing. Have to make sure that they are super, super tight. Can't just be on the boot, they have to be on the steel shell. The inner part of the axle is now a DIY slide hammer. In this case, the vice grips weren't tight enough. Increasing the tension on the pliers. Pulled loose again. Hard part is having to hold the knuckle and brake assembly out of the way while making enough room to actually pull the axle back and forth. Boom! Don't wear clothes that you're fond of because they will get covered in grease. The whole reason these are difficult to remove is this little springy C-clip on the spline area. This holds the axle shaft in place so that it doesn't just fall out as the car is driving, but it can make removal a little bit tricky. Cleaned up the area around the axle seal. I treat them as disposable. If I pull an axle, I change the seal. Got a catch pan down below because a little bit of fluid's probably going to come out when I pull the seal. There's a few different ways of getting these out. There's dedicated seal pullers. There's a trick of running a little screw into the edge of the seal and then pulling on the screw. I found I can hook the edge of my channel lock pliers onto the seal and apply a very careful amount of leverage, and they tend to pop out. Like that. Carefully wipe the area where the seal seats. Just make sure there's no flake of debris trapped in there. There's a new seal at the ready. I'll get that set into place and straightened out as best as I can. Then I'll use an extension and the same 32mm socket as I used for the axle nut to gently drive the seal into place. Once the seal's in place, I'll dip a finger in the transmission fluid on the other side and wet the contact surface of the seal just so it doesn't have a dry start. Now it's time to install the new axle. Easier said than done while still trying to leave any angle for the camera to see. Adjusted the steering so hopefully there's a little bit more space. I can get the strut and knuckle out of the way, because I need enough room to work the axle onto the splines and then over the C-clip so it seats. Click. That's now in there, and it's not coming out. After that, reassembly will depend on the make and model of car and the suspension geometry used. I'm not covering that in this video. If you want to see some more, YouTube has some options floating over here. Thanks for watching.